What was that?
Oh, Lord, it's the queen bee.
Regina George.
Don't look her in the eye!
You could be really hot if you changed, like, everything.
It may not be October 3rd, but this week on Talking About the Movies, we're talking about the musical remake. Sort of. This one's really complicated to talk about here. We're talking about the new version of Mean Girls, based off the Broadway musical, but, yeah, I'll delve more into this one in a little bit, but we're also taking a look at...
Through the top.
Honey?
It's flammable as fuck. Who knew?
A movie that sounded so ridiculous and so stupid from the get-go, it has to be good, right? Well, we'll see when we'll take a look at Jason Statham's new action thriller, The Beekeeper, a double feature this week on Talking About the Movies. With that said, welcome to another episode of Talking About the Movies, and of course this is the show where we take a look at the biggest new releases of the weekend. This weekend, not many big new releases to talk about, but last weekend there were a couple of big new movies to talk about. So let's go ahead and take a look at the movies of 2024, the movie class of 2024, if you will. We've got two movies to look at today. Both of them were released last week, so let's go ahead and take a look at those movies. And we'll start off with the biggest of the two, and that is, of course, Mean Girls. So Mean Girls is, of course, based off of the 2004 Tina Fey movie, which starred Lindsay Lohan and launched the careers of Rachel McAdams, Amanda Seyfried, and also featured a pretty stacked comedy cast in general. It was often considered as one of the great movies of that decade, one of the great comedies of that decade especially. This is also based off of the Broadway musical adaptation of the same name, and both of them were based off of a book called Queen Bees and Wannabes by Rosalind Wiseman that came out 2 years before this. So in terms of the original movie, like I said, it's a classic movie. It's a movie that I remember very vividly seeing in theaters. I remember that day in particular because it's a significant day for me, because not only did I go see that movie that day, but I also went to my first movie by myself that day, which was Envy, which was on the same day. I wanted to see it before it went out of theaters, and I basically had to beg my parents to let me go see it, and so they did, and that's how it all started with me, going to see movies on my own, picking the movies I wanted to see. It started on that day that I saw the original Mean Girls and Envy. So when I heard that they were doing this movie based off the Broadway musical, I thought, okay, I've never seen the Broadway musical, but I had my concerns, mostly because it just seemed like they were just basically remaking the original film, except adding musical numbers to it. And boy, you could certainly tell when you saw the marketing for this movie. I can't remember a movie that was trying so hard to completely make you forget that this is a musical. I mean, it's not that musicals are bad per se, especially the most recent stack of modern musicals that we've had recently. Hamilton was a great Hamilton, Hamilton was basically just a stage production of it. But for the people that didn't get to see that Broadway production in person, that movie in particular really worked out not just my favorite, because that's something I've been wanting to see for a long period of time, but a lot of people's favorites who couldn't get tickets to that. But I'm talking about stuff like, In the Heights was a great movie that came out a couple years ago that nobody went to see. West Side Story, I just watched that again on FX a couple of days ago because it was on TV. Great movie. One of Steven Spielberg's best underrated movies in general. The Color Purple just came out recently, and that was a great movie. Wonka, I didn't personally like it, but I can see the appeal of other people liking it. But for some reason, Hollywood studios, they want to make musicals, but they don't want to admit to in the marketing department that these are musicals, which is kind of a pro and a con. Yeah, you're making the money, but a con because, let's be honest, it makes these movies look like just nothing but pointless remakes by doing so. I mean, The Color Purple at least knew how to distance itself from the original movie. It was much more stylized. It was much more choreographed. It looked much different than the Steven Spielberg movie. This, on the other hand, not so much. Let's get to the story of this one. So kind of like in the first movie, you have Katie Huron, played here by Angourie Rice from The Nice Guys and the Spider-Man movies, the recent Spider-Man movies. She's welcomed into the top social food chain by the elite group of popular girls called the Plastics, ruled by the conniving queen bee Regina George, played this time by Broadway actress Renee Rapp, and her minions, Gretchen, played by B.B. Wood, and Karen, played by Avantika, I think I'm pronouncing that name right. I could be wrong on that. However, when Katie makes the major misstep of falling for Regina's ex-boyfriend, Aaron Samuels, played this time by Christopher Briney, she finds herself prey in Regina's crosshairs, as Katie sets to take down the group's apex predator with the help of her outcast friends, one of them played by Moana, Auli'i Carvalho, and the other one played by Jaquel Spivey. She must learn how to stay true to herself while navigating the most cutthroat jungle of all, high school. And I'm going to say it like this. The movie itself isn't bad. It's tolerable. It's passable. But my whole problem with this movie really stems down to a couple of critical things. One, the lack of them promoting it as a musical. Like, I think that's one of those things that I just really... It's like, what's the point of even making a musical if you're not even going to say it's a musical? And I think because it's not promoting itself as a musical, the movie simply just comes off as a pointless remake, which ends up being what I felt coming out of this movie. It's like, this is a really pointless remake when you really think about it. Like, they are not really doing anything different to this movie compared to the original film. I mean, it's definitely not there. Like, if it did something kind of like a Hamilton type of thing where you could tell that it's a stage production, but it's also supposed to be its own kind of thing to it, maybe that could have made it interesting. Or even like a West Side Story, which clearly is a big movie, but it has elements to a stage production in general. And like I don't know, like, to me personally, that just really bugged me that this whole movie really does come off as simply just seems like a remake, except it has songs to it. It also doesn't help that the movie has that thing that I hate about movies nowadays, or comedies, where it's just like, it has to be obnoxious comedy where people are just trying to make make funny faces and make silly expressions, or say something so over the top, so over the top than usual to get you to laugh. And really, that hurts because, like you see it in the trailers for this movie. Like, there are times in this movie when I hear people say lines in this movie, but they never feel like they're saying lines for the sake of saying lines to be funny. They're trying to be they're trying to do it way too over the top to get cheap reaction from you. Like Busy Phillips in this movie, who plays Regina's mother, who's played in the original by Amy Poehler. And I like Busy Phillips. I've seen her in other movies, especially I've seen her on Cougar Town. She could be really funny, but when you're asking her to go as over the top as she does in this movie here, I don't know. It really does kind of take you out of it in general. The movie also seems way too fake. Like, visually, like, I don't know what it is. It's like this movie has this glossy feel to it, where it feels like it's not something that would probably take place in real life compared to what the original movie was like. But then again, it's a stage musical. But I feel like the movie just like put like this invisible gloss or something to make it look so flashy and more stagey than it should be. I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do with musicals like this, especially with a movie like this. But I don't know. Like, I'm really conflicted on this movie, is what I'm trying to say here. It's just like, because here's the thing. Like I said, it's not a bad movie, but I feel like I was let down mostly because it never really felt like they were really trying to do something different compared to the other film. All it looks like they did with this particular film was that they just took the original movie and just put in the songs from the musical in them, and they're fine. They're perfectly fine for what they are. But again, it really kind of takes the ebb and flow out of this with a movie that I've seen more than enough times to really appreciate what it was trying to do. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I'm really conflicted on how I feel about this movie, because there's a lot of it I don't like, but there's also a lot of it I do like. Like, I do like the casting in this movie. I like all the actors in this movie. I think they do a good job of servicing their roles in here, even though sometimes they can be a little over the top in the way they present some of these lines in general. Like, I do like that they did get some of the cast members back for this movie. I think they wanted, Lindsay Lohan's back in this movie, but Tina Fey's also in this movie as well. She was, of course, in the other movie as the math teacher, because that's her same role in this. So is Tim Meadows. They also added people like John Hamm to this. Jenna Fisher plays Katie's mother. So there is a lot of good talent in the film in general. Although I will say, I do find it very funny that Paramount tried their best to get everybody to come back to this, including Rachel McAdams, Lacey Chabert, and Amanda Seyfried. They couldn't get them to come back for this, but they got a good majority to come back for the Walmart holiday commercials that played 2 months before the movie came out. And the sad part about it is, those Walmart commercials were actually a better remake of Mean Girls than this movie was. Like, that's the weird thing about this whole thing. It's just like, again, like, I'm very conflicted on how to feel about this movie, quite honestly, because on the one hand, I should hate it because it's nothing but a pointless remake, because they are literally not doing anything that different compared to the original film, except just splicing in songs from the Broadway musical. But at the same time, though, I have to commend it for the casting and the musical numbers here. Like, it's a very mixed bag of a movie. It feels it's a pointless remake, yes, but it's not something it's something that I really don't feel like I didn't waste my time with. I'm glad I got to see what I did. So yeah, I'm very conflicted by this. This is my equivalent to like watching the David Lynch's Naked Lunch. Like, everybody, whenever that movie came out, everybody was just like, I could think of 2 things wrong with that title. Like, that's what The Simpsons did when Siskel and Ebert talked about that movie. They liked it. They said but they thought it was one of the most detestable things ever, and yet they don't like it. Like, I'm probably going to be the only person that ever compares Mean Girls to Naked Lunch, of all things. Good Lord. But that's kind of what I feel like in this situation here. Like, I don't know what to give this, honestly, because there is a lot I liked about the movie, but there is a lot I didn't like about the film. It's, I guess I don't have a choice. I guess I got to give this a mixed review. Like, my thumb is, like, right in the middle. I can't really decide how I feel about it, honestly. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it either. I just kind of felt like I don't feel like I got what I was hoping for this movie. Like, on the one hand, I don't like that for the most part. It's just a remake of the original film, just with songs spliced in. But there is a lot I really did appreciate about it. I like the songs. I like the casting in general. I don't know. Like, I'm really conflicted on this particular film, so I really don't know how to say this, if I like this movie or not. But yeah, like I said, just a mixed opinion on this one. So yeah, mixed review right there. I don't know. I might have to check it out again at some point just to see what my second thoughts are on this movie. But as of right now, yeah, mixed opinion on that one. But so how about we get to a film that I did have one single reaction to, and that is Jason Statham's action film, The Beekeeper. So if you saw the trailers for The Beekeeper, you pretty much got to see what you thought you were going to see. You have Jason Statham as this one man who has this brutal campaign for vengeance that takes on national stakes after he's revealed to be a former operative of a powerful and clandestine organization known as the Beekeepers. And if you see the trailers for this movie, you pretty much expect and hope that you're going to get what you expect to see here. It's a trailer that basically tells you, yeah, we're not meant to take this seriously, but if we can entertain you for at least a couple of hours, we feel like we've accomplished our mission here. And I will say that they did indeed complete their mission, because, yeah, this is about what as stupid, as ridiculous as you think it could be. I mean, this is a movie where you have a very ridiculous concept, you have a very ridiculous storyline, but it has a style and vision to it, and it knows exactly what it's trying to do. It knows exactly what it's trying to accomplish, and it delivers everything that you can expect from that and then some. Jason Statham, man, like I've talked about it before with a lot of the movies he's been in, like he really does command the screen, and he does show his presence as an action star. I mean, he is one of the 2 best things about The Expendables 4. That's the only reason I feel like The Expendables 4 existed, to give him more screen time, him and Megan Fox, because they were the 2 strongest things about that terrible movie. But this in here, like, it knows it's stupid, it knows it's ridiculous, but it knows, hey, if we can entertain you for a couple of hours, we feel like we've accomplished our mission, and they do just that. The action sequences in this movie are so much fun. They are so ridiculously stupid. I mean, there's one where he's literally taking a guy out of his truck, they're by a bridge, and he's basically just... Even before then, this guy gets his finger cut off, and then as soon as he goes to his superiors and tells them what happened, Jason Statham's right there. He's punching him right in the face, and then he decides, you know what? That's not enough for you. I mean, I need to do much worse to you than that. So he takes another truck. He grabs like a what do you call it? The thing that you use to, like, you got something heavy on top of your car, and, like, you use the lifter cables, jumper cables. I can't think of it right now, but he basically ties him to it, turns the truck on, has it careening going off the bridge, and the guy's screaming off the top of his lungs, no, no, and then he just goes flying off of there with the truck going off. Like, moments like that make this movie watchable. The stupidity, but also the cleverness of how ridiculously stupid it is. Like, there is so much ridiculous stupidity in this movie, and I loved every single moment of it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, these are the type of movies you should be releasing in January. These are the type of movies that are not going to win Oscars. They're not going to be considered as classic movies by any means, like classic, big awards contenders. They're just movies to be there just like, hey, sit down, have some popcorn, have a drink, and just have the time of your life. Like, we don't need it to be just straight in the summertime. We need it to be, this is the type of stuff that needs to be seen all year round. And man, they deliver on this movie big time. Like, there's another great scene in the movie where he has to go to this place, and there's FBI guys all over. There's like 5 FBI guys there. No matter who you are, you're not going to be good enough to stop 5 FBI guys at once. And he's punching these guys here. It's not and you shouldn't be observing him punching the FBI guys. You should be observing the one guy who's literally about to punch him and just literally is punching air. Like, I almost kept expecting to hear somebody go, "I'll give you such a pinch," and like he doesn't, like, this movie knows how stupid it is and knows how stupid this concept is, but it's admiring every single moment of it because it knows exactly what it needs to do to entertain you. This is directed by David Ayer. David Ayer he's made a lot of good movies. I've liked a lot of his movies that he's made. He directed End of Watch, which is one of my favorite movies from 2012. He also did Fury, which was a great film. He did Suicide Squad, of course, Street Kings. This guy is a really good action director. Suicide Squad, not so much. I mean, yeah, as much as he wants to keep trying to promote that Ayer cut, it doesn't need to happen, dude. Just keep making movies like this. But the biggest surprise of all of this, Kurt Wimmer wrote the script for this. Now, Kurt Wimmer is a guy that has not made the best movies. I was not a fan of Equilibrium. I did not like his remake of Total Recall. I really did not like Salt. But he wrote Street Kings. He wrote Law Abiding Citizen. He recently wrote The Expendables 4. He did Children of the Corn. He did the infamous Point Break remake. This guy does not have the best track record, but man, this is a nice return to form for him. This is a movie that made me say, okay, dude, I kind of like you again. Like, I never said I didn't like you before, but you made a lot of terrible movies, but this is the first film I'm just kind of like, I'm glad you're back, man. I'm glad you're back. But probably my favorite thing about the ridiculousness and the stupidity of this movie is the fact that it's in the trailer too. He uses honey, he throws it at people, and then he lights it on fire because it's flammable as fuck. Somebody says it in the movie. Who knew it was flammable as fuck? And it's hilarious. Like, it's so over the top ridiculousness. So much of it in this movie, like, I enjoyed every single moment of it. I thought this was a brilliantly stupid movie. This is a film that is not going to win you any major awards or anything. This is a movie that you grab a 6-pack of beer with your buddies, go out to the movie theater, or hell, wait for this to come home on streaming. It's like, guys, we're watching The Beekeeper tonight, and we're gonna drink our asses off because this is gonna be amazing. And sure enough, it pretty much is. Like, it's a fun, in-your-face movie. It has a really solid cast in general too. Emma Raver Laprin, Josh Hutcherson, Minnie Driver, Felicia Rashad, Jeremy Irons is in this movie. This is a movie that knows exactly what it's trying to do, and it delivers on every bit of it. Like, it's a really fun, stupid, silly, over-the-top movie, and I loved every single moment of it. I give this movie a big thumbs up. A big thumbs up in terms of, like, you get your friends together, you pop this in, you're going to have the time of your life watching it. Like, this is exactly the type of movie that January needs, because you need to have something to watch in January instead of these movies that are obviously films that they've completely left on the shelf and thought, we're going to make a quick profit on them somehow. But this is a movie that definitely deserves to be seen, and it is more than worth the watch. I really enjoyed this movie a whole lot. So, yeah, those are my reviews for Mean Girls and The Beekeeper. Next week, Hoping for another movie that's so bad it's good. Just from the trailer that I saw for this alone, Snoop Dogg's movie, The Underdogs, comes out on streaming on Friday. So, I'll check that out, and I'll have a review for it coming up next week. But if you want, let me know your thoughts down below on Mean Girls and The Beekeeper. Did you like them? Did you hate them? Let me know your thoughts down below. And if you like this video, hit the like and subscribe button, and check out some of the other videos I've done. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next week for another episode. So until then, take care.